Atlantis, the Lost Kingdom, is an ancient kingdom that is of interest to people all over the world. The creator of the legend of the Kingdom of Atlantis is Plato, a great Greek philosopher, who influenced Westerners. It is said that it is a kingdom in the Atlantic Ocean. It is home to virtuous citizens and has high technology. The city is made of gold. The temple is made of silver. There are parks and a horse racetrack. But the legend says that this kingdom was destroyed and ruined by the wrath of Zeus. The origin of the story of Atlantis must go back 2,300 years ago by a Greek philosopher named Plato, which comes from writings in the form of two conversations, 427 to 347 BC. One is called Temarius and the other is called Cretius, which for the scientific community in general, it is believed that Atlantis is a story of science fiction. Not a true story, but there are many people who believe that it may be true. Therefore, there has been an attempt to find Atlantis all along. By trying to interpret the meaning of the position of Atlantis, where exactly is it? Because Plato said that Atlantis had collapsed and disappeared into the sea, far from the Pillars of Hercules or Pillars of Hercules, which is a prophecy about Atlantis, which is believed to be one of the great civilizations in the early days of the world. Prophecy about the Kingdom of Atlantis. Prophecy by Edgar Cayce predicted in part that the continent of Atlantis was the largest continent in the world, larger than all of Europe including the land of Russia. There were lands extending all over the world. The people living on Atlantis were red-skinned people who were extremely intelligent. People in general had knowledge and abilities in all sciences, including sculpture, engineering, architecture. In particular, the advancement of science, Cayce recorded it as a prophecy. The advancement of the Atlanteans. In conclusion, the Atlanteans had a lot of knowledge and advancement in chemistry, physics, and psychology. They knew how to invent electricity, knew how to use atoms from uranium, and knew how to invent laser light. And invented The land of the great empire was lost from the great disaster, shaking and collapsing under the sea overnight and day. So in 9500 BC, the Atlanteans disappeared from the face of the world. The cycle of history always turns around. So the soul of the Atlantean has the opportunity to be reborn from one land to another, from one continent to another, or from one island to another. And in the progress of Atlantis, it is equal to our modern world or maybe much more advanced. Our world has undergone many severe and sudden changes, which may cause this kingdom to emerge for the people of the world to see again. The prophecy may come true. Until in 1940, Cayce predicted that some areas of Atlantis would emerge near the Bahamas Islands, between 1968 to 1969. It turned out that Cayce's prophecy came true. The remains of an underwater city were discovered near the Bahamas Islands, neatly arranged. As if using advanced engineering and architecture technology, some stones are as big as trucks. It would be impossible to put them together by human power alone. Cayce also predicted that the catastrophe that occurred, which would cause the vast Atlantis empire to collapse and sink into the sea, would occur in many places around the world. Cayce said that in the earliest period of our world, about 10.5 million years ago, many civilizations arose and declined. The golden age of the Atlanteans was between 200,000 and 10,700 BC, which is from about 13,000 years ago onwards, meaning that it would last about 80,000 to 900,000 years. These are some of the prophecies of Oscar Casey, who predicted the past of our world, going back hundreds of thousands to millions of years. In fact, what he predicted must wait for new generations of scientists in the present world to clearly prove in the future. Explorers around the world are giving importance to finding the location from Plato's records. Atlantis is a story of Plato's writings that people are interested in, which is a conversation about his ancestors who have passed on. That Atlantis is a nation that lives on the island, in the period of 11,500. Where was the location of the Atlantis Empire? Position 1. Atlantis was located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which is now the Strait of Gibraltar. Therefore, Atlantis should be in the Atlantic Ocean, probably the Azores, Mareiras, or Canary Islands. But in the end, archaeological studies on these islands did not provide any evidence that there was ever an Atlantean empire. Position 2. When there was no evidence in the Atlantic Ocean, people who believed in the Atlantis Empire turned to consider Plato's words that the Pillars of Hercules should be the Dardanelles of the Black Sea rather than the Strait of Gibraltar. Therefore, the search for Atlantis was moved from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mediterranean Sea instead. Position 3. But his discovery was disputed by Christian Hubischer, a German physicist. From the Marine Science Center in Hamburg, he came out to argue through a German newspaper that the area that Sarmast found was a phenomenon that occurred 100,000 years ago when an underwater volcano spewed out mud. He and his Dutch colleagues had previously sailed to explore the area that Sarmast identified as Atlantis. What Sarmast said was not true. Previously, explorers focused on the coast of Spain, Cuba, and the west of the British Isles, as well as the South China Sea. The previous comprehensive survey was a satellite image of the Granada National Park in Spain. From archaeologists from the University of Edinburgh in England, the image found two large, rectangular structures sunk in the mud under the sea. There were metal circles with radiuses and other structures around it. Who was the Atlantis Empire built for? The research team at that time believed that the two structures were the Golden Temple built by the Atlanteans to worship the god Poseidon of the sea, and the Silver Temple to worship the goddess Cleito, wife of the god Poseidon, who gave birth to the king who ruled the city of Atlantis. But after the satellite images were released, the area was not excavated in any way. The fall of the Empire of Atlantis. After many generations, the people of the island were law-abiding citizens. Their king ruled justly. But as the generations passed, the goodness of their souls diminished. And in their hearts, there was only ambition, regardless of the law, and obsessed with power. And then Zeus, the king of the gods, realized the degradation that was happening to the Atlanteans. So he punished them and decided to punish the Atlantean kingdom immediately. Zeus called the gods to gather, and then there were catastrophic earthquakes and floods throughout the day and night. The land split and swallowed all the warriors of Athens. While the great island of the Atlantean people also sank into the sea until today. Until today, the water in the ocean at that location is shallow and ships cannot pass through. It has become a mudslide caused by the land. When the island of Atlantis collapsed and disappeared, there is only one person who has recorded about this kingdom, which is Plato, the only one who mentioned it. But no one knows with 100% certainty whether what Plato wrote is true or a lie. Or is it just a kingdom that does not exist, but is just a fiction written by himself using geographical and historical data to compose it quite realistically, along the lines of Plato's book, The Republic. But even though Plato wrote this story based on information from many places, there are still many people who do not believe that Atlantis is all just fiction. They feel that they want Atlantis to really exist and are still searching for and investigating under the various oceans and hoping to see the greatness of this great empire of Atlantis again.